Good morning, USA. I'm Nora, and you are watching BBT News 1. For watching breaking news, subscribe our channel, and don't forget to click on bell icon. Let's start today news. The sterile halls of the Munich Security Conference reverberate with tension. Amid the heavy camera flashes, two figures exchange a handshake. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Chibeha. The photograph captured in that moment would send ripples through the Kremlin, causing more damage than any missile strike ever could. This wasn't a diplomatic encounter. It was a statement, a bold declaration of war against what the world thought was an unbreakable alliance. Just 4 years prior, under the Beijing Winter Olympics, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping stood side by side, celebrating an unwavering friendship and a strategic partnership aimed at challenging Western dominance. Moscow believed the partnership was impervious, but they were wrong. In the cold, intense atmosphere of Munich, that myth crumbled. China extended its hand to Ukraine, a move that left Russia cornered, powerless, and silent. The real shock came behind the scenes. The economic message China delivered was far more chilling. To truly understand the depth of this betrayal, we must look to the Pacific. That's where the fallout will have the most lasting consequences. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We're about to unravel the most significant geopolitical betrayal of the 21st century. Let's revisit that pivotal moment in Munich. On February 13th, 2026, during the 62nd Munich Security Conference, Wang Yi and Chibeha meet behind closed doors. What happens next is a diplomatic earthquake. After a tense meeting, the Ukrainian side emerges, declaring victory. China has decided to provide Ukraine with an additional humanitarian energy aid package, a gesture that is as unexpected as it is powerful. Ukraine expresses its gratitude, and the ripple effect is immediate. In Moscow, the news lands like a bomb, shaking the very foundations of Russia's strategy. This isn't routine diplomacy. China, Russia's supposed ally, has made it clear that it's changing sides without hesitation. The message is clear. Russia's ally has now become Ukraine's benefactor, ensuring that Ukrainian cities already ravaged by Russian missile strikes won't be plunged into darkness. It's a direct assault on Russia's military strategy. For months, Putin's forces have waged a brutal campaign, targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure in an attempt to freeze the country into submission. But China's intervention is an unequivocal defiance. With one move, Beijing has ensured that Russia's plans will not succeed. And the situation gets even more alarming. Wang Yi himself has been invited to Ukraine, further cementing the gravity of this shift. Just imagine, what if China's foreign minister walks through the streets of Kiev under the threat of Russian missiles? What would that do to Putin's narrative? The reality is clear. China is playing both sides. On one hand, it provides Russia with the components it needs to fuel its war machine, and on the other, it repairs the damage caused by that same machine in Ukraine. This is a masterstroke of geopolitical manipulation. It's not just the diplomatic shockwaves that matter here. It's the economic undercurrent that's playing out in the background. The Chinese are sending a clear message. Russia may be Moscow's most strategic partner, but it's now increasingly expendable. China's actions in the Arctic and its shift in oil pricing are a testament to this change. Russia is now paying for its oil exports to China at bargain prices, prices so low that Moscow is struggling to keep afloat. In 2025, the trade volume between the two countries hit a wall, falling by 7%, a worrying sign for the Russian economy. But it gets worse for Russia. China has long been a key player in the Arctic, a region Moscow once considered its exclusive domain. Yet satellite images and leaked documents show that China is now asserting its dominance in the northern sea route, a vital strategic corridor. What was once a Russian-controlled pathway is now being transformed into a Chinese-led route for trade with Europe. Moscow is losing its grip on one of its most prized assets. This loss is more than symbolic. It's an economic catastrophe for Russia. And while this is happening, China continues to play the long game. It's not about a sudden collapse of Russia. It's about making Russia weaker and more dependent on China. It's a slow burn that will eventually leave Moscow with no options. And the most disturbing part of this scenario, Russia is aware of all of this, but is too weak to do anything about it. The Russian government is powerless in the face of China's economic and strategic moves. Let's turn our attention to Europe, where the mood has shifted dramatically. No longer afraid of Moscow, European leaders are growing more vocal in their criticism of Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron's recent comments labeling Russia a vassal state were a clear sign that Europe is no longer intimidated by Moscow. This shift in Europe's stance is directly related to the changing geopolitical landscape. The Russian military has been humiliated on the battlefield, and NATO is now at Russia's doorstep with the inclusion of Finland and Sweden. The Black Sea, once a Russian stronghold, has now been virtually cleared of Russian naval forces. This shift in European dynamics is precisely why China has recalibrated its approach. No longer can China see Russia as an untouchable partner. Instead, Beijing views Moscow as a weak ally, one that it can manipulate to its advantage. The strategic calculus for China has changed, and it now understands that Europe is united against Russia. The threat of Russian aggression has forced European countries to increase defense spending, creating a unified front that China must contend with. But what does all of this mean for the future? As China continues to extend its reach into the Arctic, assert control over key trade routes, and drive a wedge between Russia and its allies, one thing is clear. The balance of power is shifting. Russia's once unbreakable partnership with China is crumbling, and Beijing is taking advantage of this moment to assert its own dominance. In the long run, this strategy will have profound implications for global security and diplomacy. Russia, once a proud empire, is now a shadow of its former self, its sovereignty slipping away with every Chinese intervention. And while Putin may still hold on to his nuclear deterrence, the real question is whether that will be enough to protect him from Beijing's economic stranglehold. The real map of the future is not being drawn in Ukraine. It's being drawn in Siberia, in the Arctic, in the corridors of Beijing. As Putin fights for control of a war that he has no hope of winning, China is quietly dismantling Russia's empire piece by piece, setting the stage for the next phase of global conflict. This isn't just a war of missiles and tanks. It's a war of trade, of oil, of economic power. And the most terrifying part, the world is only just beginning to understand the true scope of China's plans. Stay tuned. This is just the beginning of a new Cold War, a war fought not with bullets and bombs, but with trade agreements, energy deals, and strategic maneuvers. And in this war, China is playing a dangerous game, one that could have global repercussions for decades to come.